So what's been going on? So you've been writing. That's been like a deep commitment.
Oh my God.
And then working on like...
I'm so busy.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, it's light outside. Like this is, I don't get out much recently.
What's your motivation though? What drives you? What gives you the fuel to sacrifice that much to do it? Like what is the thing?
Well, it's a combination of things, both internal and external. One is I'm very passionate about the projects I'm working on. And it's kind of that same thing. It's like, I've got 2 books in my head. One I'm finishing up. The other one I haven't started yet. But it's kind of like if I died on the way home today, those would be the two.
Yeah.
That would be like, oh shit, I didn't get that book out. So that's kind of the internal, like, got to make this happen. But then, the beautiful thing about the publishing industry is that people give you money and then they get really, really, really angry if you don't write something. And so that's the external motivation.
And that post subtle art of not giving a fuck money. That's real money.
Yeah,
that stings. The publishers, that hurts them a little bit. That's like pulling off a Band-Aid when they got to give you that money.
It's serious money. And then when you do what I did, which is you sign up for projects with multiple people, everybody's like, nobody wants to feel like they're the last priority. So you kind of have to make everybody feel special.
Or are you the ethical asshole and you just tell everybody the ruthless truth?
It's like, hey, should have paid more.
Yeah. Hey, you're a third priority, actually, but I do love you.
Yeah.
It's just the other people paid more, and that's it. I want to talk about that, though, because your fucking blog posts are just... You're such a beast, man. Like, obviously, your book is a beast, and it's like an amazing, phenomenal success, amazing book. But just the fucking blog articles you write, like, it's really impressive.
Thanks, man.
Because
Thank you.
they're work products that are not. It's not just like a blog. Like, usually you read a blog and it feels like, oh yeah, I wrote a blog. Even when I write a blog, it's like, oh, here's my blog. This is not like the fucking thing. But these are like fucking gems. These are like diamonds, man. They're honed and they're polished and they're dope, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I try. It's funny because I feel like blogging, on the one hand, blogging's kind of dying a slow death right now. And so it's been hard to maintain that excitement for posting stuff.
Yep.
Especially this last year. And then with all these book projects and stuff going on, it's so the blog gets put into that last priority. So a lot of times when I do end up writing for the blog, it's either like a big kind of passion project. It's like, okay, I just love this idea so much, but it doesn't fit anywhere. So it's like, I'm going to put it on the blog. Or it's just pure guilt. It's like, I got to give people something, like it's like, I can't just disappear on everybody. Like, I don't want to do that. So, so then I'll go find something and like work it up. A lot of times it's kind of ideas that are left over from the book projects or that, kind of like B-sides, stuff like that.
Well, the article, which one of the points was there's advantages to being an asshole, but there's 2 types of different assholes.
Sure.
There's the fucking egregious, offensive asshole that's actually probably not doing the world any good. And then there's the ethical asshole, which is actually an important element.
Yes.
And also kind of parlays off some of the ideas in not giving a fuck.
Right. Right.
So explain like kind of where this idea came about, because asshole is typically vilified.
Yes.
And I think you were able to like reframe it in a way that was like, okay. Yeah, I get that.
So one of the concepts from subtle art is, I guess you would say the foundational concept in subtle art is that we should not be prioritizing our lives around just feeling good or feeling happy. Like, there needs to be things that are more important than pleasure or happiness.
Yeah, and good luck if you make that your goal and just chase that around the whole time.
Oh,
like, you're gonna fucking fail.
Yeah, it's a downward spiral. No matter where you find it,
listen to the fucking Roman emperors and have them talk about hedonic tolerance, right?
Yeah.
It just got weirder and weirder and weirder, and the pleasure evaporated and ran away.
Yeah,
for the ones that weren't doing anything meaningful.
Yeah. So it's kind of an extension of that, and I think one area where people have the most difficult time with this is within relationships or with dealing with other people. Because when you kind of extrapolate that idea of there needs to be something more important than feeling good, when you apply that to relationships, it's basically you need to be willing and able to be kind of a dick to people at times, to maintain a healthy and purposeful life. And a lot of people struggle with that because it feels bad. They hate seeing other people feel bad. And so they skirt around it. They avoid conflict, or, they give in and try to please people and do all that sort of stuff. And it's interesting because when you look at a lot of like the personality research, you actually see that this plays out, that people who are disagreeable actually tend to do better in their professions. They make more money. And to me, that's just kind of like a nice, solid piece of evidence of like, the people who get somewhere and actually build something and create something there, it's because they're willing to make sacrifices along the way.
Yeah. Well, you're willing to bear. It's almost like you're willing to bear a certain uncomfortability.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And like you say, being a dick, but really, a lot of times that's just being honest and being willing to bear the uncomfortability. Because if you aren't willing to bear that discomfort, you'll hold this resentment, and the resentment will build and build and build because you haven't expressed your truth. You haven't told your business partner what you actually feel is fair. You haven't told your girl what you think means, an equal reciprocal relationship. So you're holding all this resentment back in. And then what happens is that resentment brews and you feel bad about not standing up for yourself, but you don't really have the courage and you're not willing to feel bad. And then you'll choose anger, and anger will give you the courage where you were a coward before. All of a sudden, now I'm angry and I can fucking Hulk out and not only tell the truth, but then spew all the additional anger that I had before because I didn't have the courage just to be that honest dick right at the start and say, hey, this is what I need. Yeah. And so we get stuck in these fucking patterns, whereas if we can just bear that, just bear that discomfort right up at the start, it's a different game. Yeah,
and one thing I talk about in that piece is that ultimately the reason people aren't willing to make other people feel bad is because they're not willing to feel bad themselves. Yeah. Because it's like when you're able to bear shittiness, you're like, okay, I can handle it. Like they should handle it too. Because this is the truth and this is going to make us both better. It's when people are terrified of bearing that themselves that they hide away from, like, oh, I can't say that to them. No. Well, maybe if I just wait another month, like things will like smooth over and be fine. Yeah. And it seems like there's two ways though. It seems like there's this almost like the sociopathic way where it's like you don't feel bad when you make someone feel bad because you don't really think of them as a person. Mm-hmm. Like you've removed yourself so far from the personhood of the other person that you've disidentified with them enough that you actually don't feel it. And that's an unethical asshole. That's the unethical asshole. And there's a lot of those, right? Yes. Because they're able to fucking crank shit out and do, because they don't look at people as people and they don't have any of that empathic impulse. So they just fucking plow through it. But then there's like the conscious version, which is willing to be empathetic and be compassionate, like with that person's suffering, which means that you're probably going to have to bear some of that yourself. Yeah. But if you have the courage to actually just bear it and not divert it and just hold and not over respond to it, but just like bear, like, oh yeah, I feel that. And then you can move forward with it. Then you can be the pinnacle of what we're talking about, which is the person who's willing to tell the truth, who doesn't push things down the road and wait for anger and wait for a giant fucking mess, but can handle shit right at the start. Plus, you'll help that other person get over it fast because they'll see like, look, like I'm with you. Like I know this is hard, and that empathy will actually make them feel comforted to a certain degree, and you'll both be able to move through this shit way fucking faster. Yeah, I think that's kind of the defining difference between the ethical and the unethical asshole. You know, another way to think about it is like tough love. A lot of times the best way, you know, the classic example is like parenting. Oftentimes the best way to parent a kid is to be mean to them, is to be like, you know, you got to punish them. You got to be like, you can't do that. But and you upset them, you know, they cry and everything, but you do it because it's for their own good. Because it's promoting growth in both of you by doing it, and you know that's the foundation of tough love. And I think a lot of people, they don't extrapolate that concept and kind of apply it to all their, like, you can be in a work relationship. You can have a coworker who's like fucking up. And the fact that you go to them and get on their case could save them their job, you know? And so it comes back to intentions. It's like, why are you being so ornery or such a prick? It's like, are you doing it for a greater good? Are you doing it for a greater cause? And we need people like that in the world.
Yeah. And that's, it's pretty essential to have that long game perspective.
Yeah.
You know, it's where like, all right, you have to be willing to bear the temporary discomfort of this, you know, confrontation. And there's ways you can do it, you know, and there's an attitude by which you can do it, which can be, oh, I see you and you're just like me. And I know when I've been in that same situation. So I'm not judging you, man.
Yeah.
I'm not judging you at all, bro or girl, like, because I've fucking been super jealous and I've been lazy and I've been all these things. So you come with them with a kind of that authenticity and the vulnerability, like, look, I'm not judging you, but you're fucking up here.
Yeah.
And this is going to cause these consequences and somebody's got to tell you this shit.
Yeah.
You know, and then they can receive it in a variety of different ways. You're not responsible for how they receive it, but you have to be willing to do that for the long game health. And same with the kids. Like, they have to know, like, hey, you can't just cause a tantrum when all the adults are talking. This isn't just about you. You know, sorry. If you continue, you're going to have to go to timeout, little bud. Like, we love you, but there's things you need to learn, you know, like, and then whatever that is, that's just one fucking example.
Yeah.
But that's playing the long game. Whereas playing the short game is like, okay, I'll go get you your mac and cheese. Okay, I'll get you your pizza. Oh no, you're doing a great job. And I love it so much, sweetie, and everything's good. And it's just like kind of manic. Oh, I gotta tell everybody they're doing great, and I gotta make everybody feel good right now.
Yeah.
At the cost of their long-term, you know, health and wellness and sanity and growth.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that those relationships are a reflection of the relationship with themselves, because it's people who are not able to be stern or stand up to other people are not able to be stern or stand up to themselves. They're not able to tell themselves no. They're not able to make themselves feel bad. They're not able to decide like, hey, this isn't in my best interest. So, you know, maybe I shouldn't be like doing coke on a Tuesday night, you know, like that's fucking profound. Yeah. So
I mean, that's really fucking profound. Say that again for everybody. Say that one more time for everybody, because I think this is really important.
You know how I stumbled upon this idea? There's, for some reason, like everybody in my building decided to get a dog at the same time. And like every single dog in my building is so horribly behaved and just like tearing around the halls and like running on and the owners are just, you know, everybody lives in my building. They're like all millennials. They're all like 20 somethings who just got their first corporate gig. Yeah. And so all the owners are like, isn't she so cute? And, you know, my wife is like fearing for her life. And I'm sitting there and I'm like realizing, I'm like, you know, dogs, the discipline in a dog is a reflection of the discipline in the owner, because a relationship with a dog is purely emotional. To be able to tell a dog no, to punish a dog, there needs to be a certain emotional resilience within yourself. And I started noticing that all my neighbors and all these people that I knew who were like, had horrible dogs, they had no mental discipline themselves. They couldn't say no to themselves. They couldn't stop themselves from indulging on their own emotions.
Yep.
And I realized that that's like, the dog is a reflection of that. And it's the same thing with kids. It's the same thing with friendships. You know, if you aren't able to place those boundaries in your friendships, you're not placing those boundaries with yourself. You're not placing them with your spouse. You're not placing them anywhere. Yeah. You know, and because it all starts with, fundamentally, your relationship with yourself is what is refracted and reflected in everybody around you.
And it's this kind of like bilateral thing where you can actually look on both sides.
Yes.
Look how you're treating yourself and you'll see how you treat other people.
Yes.
You know, look how you're treating other people and you'll also see how you're treating yourself.
And you'll also see the way you treat yourself is also how you'll let other people treat you. Mm-hmm. So if you treat yourself like garbage, you'll let other people treat you like garbage.
You want agreement. You want accord.
Sure.
So if you really have a low opinion of yourself and people are praising you, you're going to be like, you're fucking missing the mark. You don't see me at all. Because the way that I see myself is I see myself as a piece of shit. So I'm going to find someone who agrees with what I see. And so, look, they treat me like a piece of shit. They see me like a piece of shit. That person sees me, you know? And so you'll find that thing. Or if you have a higher opinion of yourself, you'll find someone who can see that holistic, higher view of yourself, because we want agreement. We want to be seen.
And this is why when people actually do start improving themselves, some of their relationships break and fall away, because their relationship was built on that kind of mutual self-destruction. And so when you stop self-destruction, you destroying yourself, you know, that person in your life is like, well, wait a second. You know, you changed, man. We used to do coke on Tuesdays. Like, what happened to you? You know, it's like, man, you became lame. You started like waking up and going to work. What the hell, man?
For the man now.
Yeah, bro. Exactly. And so those relationships start falling apart, and it's a very difficult part of, you know, I guess doing like the internal work.
Yeah,
is you see that reflected.
And it's another good check for your internal work is if someone comes to you and criticizes some element of your personality, of your proclivities or whatever, and you get angry, if someone's like, hey, I think you might have a coke problem, you're like, fuck you, man. Like, what the fuck? Like, go look at that. Yeah. You know, go look at that. Because anytime you respond emotionally, again, anytime you have that anger, that's giving you courage to stand up for you. But it really comes from fear. Yeah. Right? But if someone comes to you like, hey, I think you have a coke problem, you're like, whatever, bro. Like, that didn't even land, you know, like it doesn't upset me. Like, I'm fine, buddy. Yeah. Like, don't worry about it. And you're not even emotionally, I mean, I guess you could like blow someone off and be completely unaware. Sure. But like typically the emotional response comes to the things that we're not quite sure about.
It's proportional. It's proportional to the things that we don't want to accept about ourselves.
Yeah. So,
and about other people.
And then the other element with this, mirrors are so fucking interesting, because there's that other side of you that gets annoyed with things in other people and like holds it against them. But so many times that I've been annoyed with something in like my partner or somebody, I'm like, oh, I see that same thing that I'm doing. Yeah. Like there's that fucking similar thing that I'm doing that I haven't even looked at, you know, that I have been like ashamed to look at, and like, oh, I feel unappreciated. Well, have I been appreciating everything? Yeah. Oh, actually, no, I haven't. I haven't been fucking appreciating everything. Yeah. So like my annoyance with other people is in proportion with some kind of shame and deflection and lack of conscious awareness of the things that I'm annoyed with about myself. Yeah.
Well, and that also happens too when you leave an identity behind. So like, for instance, you know, when I was younger, like I smoked for a number of years. I smoked for like 8 years, and it was really hard to quit. And I remember for like 2 or 3 years after I quit, I just had these like intense moral judgments against smokers. Like I would like go to a party and I'd see people smoke. I'm like, these insensitive, self-absorbed fucking smokers just like breathing cancer on everybody around them. You know, I was just this morally indignant guy, but it's because, you know, when you move past something, I think a big part of the process of like growing past something is you need to disassociate with it and actually kind of become antagonistic towards it. Yeah. You know, you have to look at that former self and kind of think it's shit. You know, you kind of have to be like, no, I really don't want to be around that. And so you start seeing that in other people too. Mm-hmm. You know, I ran into the same thing with partying, and particularly like I used to just chase girls till I was blue in the face. And once I started to settle down, I actually noticed that a lot of my guy friends who were like partying constantly and chasing girls constantly, I started having the same reaction. I was like, dude, like, come on, man, get your shit together. Like, let's get serious. Come on, that judgment started coming up, and I'm like, you know, this is just me. Like, I moved past this, you know, and like this was part of my evolution. You know, everybody else has their own process and their own timeline and their own direction that they go in, and it's hard you have to like remember to like separate. Understand that like your process isn't necessarily what everybody's process should be. Yeah. And your timeline is also not what everybody's timeline. Like some people deal with stuff, you know, something that you dealt with in your 20s, I might not get around to till when I'm in my 40s, you know, like, and vice versa, you know? So I guess it comes back to that, what's that quote? I think it's from Plato. It's like, be kind before everybody's fighting a hard battle. You know, it's like everybody's got their shit.
Yeah.
And just because theirs isn't, you know, the prism we see everything through is our own shit. So
and it's our own ego. It's the things that we've praised ourselves for, the things that we've gotten our validation for, and blah, blah, blah.
And the things that we've destroyed in ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
I think it's really interesting too, though. And I think it's healthy to look at this like, okay, you've moved past something, and then like you move past smoking, you move past the chasing girl stage, and then your immediate reaction was to create an even bigger distance gap between that with your own judgment but understand that might just be a healthy part of the process. Yeah, it's your own shit and you're overreacting, but sometimes the pendulum does have to swing a little bit farther back the other way just to give you the room. Otherwise, if you stayed right in the middle, you might just get sucked right the fuck back in. Like you almost have to create this temporarily harsher judgment. But otherwise, you're just going to smash back together. And maybe that's what people do in a traditional like relationship too, where it's like, you finish seeing somebody that you had a real strong sexual connection with, but the relationship isn't working, and you create fucking mad distance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because otherwise, if you're kind of in the middle, it might be like, hey, like one of those country songs, like, hey, what are you doing tonight?
I think it's an inevitable process of just kind of how we all go through life. And I've noticed it with like silly stuff that I've done too. Like, you know, I remember when I lived abroad, I used to like, you know, look back at all my friends who lived in the US and I'm like, fucking just countries self-combusting, you know, and like those poor saps stuck in that shit-ridden country. And then when I moved back to the US, I'm like, oh God, living abroad, like, you know, who wants to do that? You know, it's just, it's the constant, it's those narratives that your mind is always spinning for yourself. And one of the things that it does is that, you know, whatever is in your recent past whatever you've just recently lost or like moved past, it's like your mind kind of copes with that by spinning these stories of like, yeah, I'm so much better off now. When it's like, dude, you'd be fine wherever you are. Like it doesn't really matter. But, you know, your mind spins those stories and generates those emotions, you know, to keep you like feeling content in the place that you're at.
All of this that we're talking about, like, it gets really rad when you have the self-awareness to kind of track it. Yeah. You know, and like I don't know when your self-awareness about that smoking thing probably came in hindsight, right?
Yeah.
Like you probably didn't know it at the time, but now, like if you've just moved past something and then you find yourself being like a little bit of a dick, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is just me creating distance. And then you can still do it, but you're just aware of what you're doing. You're not that blind fucking bull who's just like seeing red and just crashing into China and breaking it and doing whatever. So, you know, I read your recent blog post about self-awareness and thought it was great. Like, what is some of your advice on the levels of self-awareness? And eventually we'll get to the turtles all the way down because I think that's fucking hilarious too.
I'm trying to remember what my levels were. I wrote that like 6 months ago. This is the problem is like sometimes people come up to me and they're like, hey man, remember that article you like said this and this? And I'm like, oh, I said that? That's pretty smart. Like, like I don't remember it all.
Well, I think you started the article as like, self-awareness is like sex. People think they're great at it, but really nothing much is happening at all. You know, and this idea that, you know, we all think we're self-aware, but there's just levels and layers and steps that you start to peel. But there's also the absurdity when you go ad infinitum. And you like keep peeling and keep peeling and you become obsessed with all the peeling. And so it's just this kind of combination of like, okay, become aware, fucking release. Yeah. You know, like let go.
So I think I remember the layers. So I think the top layer is like actually like, what am I doing? You know, which it's surprising how many people aren't even aware of what the fuck they're doing.
Step one. I'm having gay sex right now. How did this happen?
How did you guys get in here?
I'm not gay. Why is this man's mouth around my cock? I don't understand.
Yeah. It's a lot of us spend a lot of our lives mentally not with whatever we're doing. So even that is like very much a process of like coming to understand like, oh shit, like I'm actually saying these things and I'm actually doing these things. And I think I'm being very healthy, but I'm like eating ice cream for breakfast. And it's actually very hard to just kind of be honest about that. Be honest about like, all right, yeah, I'm not doing what I thought I should be doing or I think I'm doing. The next layer is to look at how.
Well, let's just stay there for a second.
Okay.
Because, like, what's preventing that? All right. Well, we have all of this, all these ideas about what we should be,
Yeah.
and all this shame surrounding anything that doesn't fit the narrative of what we should be or what our ego wants.
Yeah.
So, like, if our ego and we want to be healthy,
Yeah.
but we're eating ice cream every morning, we might rationalize it and be like, "Oh, ice cream's got fat in it. It's probably keto." I'm good. Like, we'll fucking figure some shit out. And the example you said, it can happen. So it can happen long term with these rationalizations about long term habits, but it can happen short term. You gave that great example of someone who's like, "Hey, you seem a little mad." No, fuck you, man. I'm not mad, bro. Like, what the fuck? Are you mad? I'm not fucking mad.
Yeah.
Like, we've all been in these arguments with our significant other where they're like, "Well, you're angry," and they're like, "No, I'm not fucking angry. You're fucking angry," you know?
It's like,
Because we're like ashamed of the fact that we're getting emotional about this. So we'll be in denial, and sometimes it's short term, and sometimes it's long term. But I think it really just has to do with we're trying to make ourselves this idea of what we are, which is, and we're ashamed of everything that's not, which is like radical blindness.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, the brain is kind of a awful thing because like, so think about sports, you know, like it's so fascinating. Like since I've studied all the psychology for years and years and years, it's fascinating when I go to a sports game. So like, let's say you're at a basketball game and there's a foul under the basket and it's like immediately half the people in the crowd are fucking angry because they're like, that's not a foul. Look at the replay. It's clearly not hitting him. Like, you know, and then the other half of the crowd is like, that's clearly a foul. That guy's a dirty player. And it's like, everybody's looking at the exact same thing in like complete slow motion HD and seeing opposite stuff. Yeah. And I think that like perceptual bias, it applies to everything in our life. So it's like, if I think I'm a healthy person, I'm just gonna like not even realize that I'm like, I'll look at like a massive plate of French fries and be like, yeah, that's probably 200 calories, you know, like, you know, and it's like, I don't even realize I'm doing it because it's just, it suits what I already believe about myself and about the world. And so even before you get to the emotional component of it, it's just like your eyes lie to you.
Perceptual bias.
All of us. Yep. It's to the point where it's gotten to the point where like eyewitness testimony in courtrooms is like, it's not even used in a lot of cases anymore because it's so easy for people to just see shit that didn't happen. Yeah. Like it's incredible. It's really incredible.
Yeah. I've always said that nobody watches the same movie.
Yeah.
Like, because it could be the fucking Avatar. Like 1 billion people watched it, right? Yeah. Nobody watched that same movie because their own biases, their own ways that they saw things, the things that they picked up. Because you can, even yourself, you can watch the same fucking, I probably watched Braveheart 15 times. Yeah. I'll pick up new shit when I watch it. I'm like, oh, I didn't notice that. That's fucking cool. Things you don't see, things that you're aware of, things that'll hit, things that'll land. You can read a second book like 2 years later and have a totally different reading experience based upon the whole state of your mind, the whole state of your emotions, like what you're able to see, what you're ready to see. It's like when someone you know gets a medical condition, you've never heard of that thing before, and then every fucking 30 minutes on TV, someone's talking about it. You're like, is this a coincidence?
Yeah,
like, no, like, that was, you just weren't aware of it before.
Yeah, yeah. It's there's a funny example from, there's a psychologist, Dan Gilbert, who like researches a lot of this stuff, and he said what he used to explain it is he said, he was like, he asked somebody, he was like, how many orange bicycles have you seen in the last week? And the person's like, none, like, I don't know. And he's like, something really important in your life is going to happen involving an orange bicycle. Like, keep an eye out. And he said, I guarantee you for the rest of the day, you're going to see like 6 today. And it's all it is that your brain's like primed, you know, until like you read a horoscope. It's like, an orange bicycle will change your life. You know, it's like suddenly you see them everywhere. And you're like, oh yeah, my roommate's friend like has an orange bike and he totally came over and like I heard about this job opportunity, like totally changed my life. You know, it's like you never would have put those two things together at all. So yeah, the brain just from the get-go, our brain is just a wonky, goofy, self-serving thing. And it's and we're all along for the ride.
Yep. We are. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
All right. So that's level 1.
Yes.
Level 2.
Figuring out what you're actually doing is level 1. Level 2 is figuring out what you're actually feeling about what you're doing.
Even harder.
Yeah. So now like the difficulty just compounds, because a lot of us, even if we do know what we're doing, we're very poor at knowing how we feel about it or why we feel that way.
Yep.
Well, actually, that's level 3, why we feel that way. But we're very poor at knowing how we feel about it. So, we'll convince ourselves for years of like, yeah, my job's great. And then it's like, suddenly you get a pay cut and you're like, wait, I fucking hate this thing. Like, I never liked this. I've been depressed for 5 years. Like, how did that happen? And it's, in one way I describe it is I think of emotions as kind of like individual skill sets. So like the same way we're all born with different talents. Some people are good at singing, some people are good at running, whatever. Some people are good at anger, some people are good at sadness, some people are good at guilt, some people are good at whatever. And then we also develop those skills. So if you're in a family that anger is never appropriate, you'll never develop a skill in anger. You'll never learn how to express it in a healthy way, control it in yourself, respond to it in a healthy way. But if you're in a family that's just,
rageaholics.
Yeah, just burning all the time, you'll probably still be unhealthy in that area, but you'll actually have a much easier time like getting to a place where it's like, okay, I can kind of express this in a healthy way.
It's kind of the balance though, right? Because you like need enough of it so it's not ashamed, not repressed, and able to be like, okay, yeah, here's anger, and be able to respond. But then on the other extreme, which I thought was where you're going, it's also can be like traumatic.
Yeah, the direction I was going was like healthy, unhealthy.
Right.
So each extreme is unhealthy.
Yep.
Showing no anger is unhealthy. Always showing anger is unhealthy.
Yep.
So we all come from families where we're healthy about some emotions. We're very unhealthy in others.
Yep.
And then I think we all kind of have emotional talents. Some people are just like me. I just never feel guilty ever. Like I'm like, guilt just doesn't happen to me. I don't know why. I don't, it's like if I do something really awful, I just go apologize. I get sad. But I don't dwell, like I don't have that guilt that just eats at me.
I heard something really fucking dope from Karen Rinaldi, who was talking about guilt. We were just having coffee. And she's like, guilt is the most selfish, narcissistic emotion that the human being can feel.
Yeah.
Because what it's doing is it's taking something that's happening to somebody else and it's redeeming your own feelings about it by punishing yourself for it and making it about you.
Yeah.
And all of this is about you redeeming you through a focus on your pain rather than just being in compassion and empathy with that other person's pain. You're like, nope. I'm just going to punish myself here real quick and I'll be good and I don't have to look at them and we'll move on. I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah. Guilt's
that's fucking interesting.
It's really destructive. And I mean, I think a lot of it, I mean, probably part of it is just, innate, but like part of it too is like, I came from a family that it's like, if you feel bad about something, my parents were like, well, go fucking do something. Like, don't just sit there and mope. Like, go do something. Like, go apologize or go make it better, And so I was very fortunate that I came from that background. And so I just kind of never, anytime I start feeling bad about something, I'm like, oh shit, better fix it. Whereas in my family, anger was never shown, And so it took me years as an adult to get to a place where I could let myself be pissed off and get to a place where, in some of my early relationships, it's like if my girlfriend got angry and yelled at me, I'm like, the house is burning down, my life is over. Like, she's going to leave me forever because she yelled at me about, leaving the fridge door open or something, it's like these completely irrational responses. So for me, that was an area that I'd like train myself and like work at. So I think a lot of the self-awareness about emotions is just through an arduous process of trial and error, like understanding your strengths and your weak points, and learning how to kind of adapt to yourself almost. Understanding like, you know, like for me, another example for myself is like, I have a tendency probably once every 5 years, I just get really bummed out. I just get really like depressed and bummed out for like a 6 to 12 month period. Sometimes it's not even like nothing even happened. And it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I had enough of a track record to kind of recognize this pattern. And it was funny. I was actually, I was visiting a cousin of mine who I hadn't seen in like, since I was a teenager. And I was talking to him, and he and I got drunk together. And I was like, how are things, man? And he's like, I'm gonna be really honest. Like, I think I'm pretty bummed out, like pretty depressed. And I was like, well, what's wrong? What's going on? He's like, nothing. I just get like this like every 5 years. And I sat there, I'm like, oh shit, I think I do too.
Yeah,
you know, like I think it's just a thing. It's just, that's part of me, you know?
And it's worthwhile, and this is transitioning to number 3, the third level, is to ask why.
Yeah.
But sometimes just even knowing what you're feeling and not like externalizing and rationalizing and saying like, but like just sitting with it and being like, oh, why? You know, like, why is that? Because it happens to me. It doesn't happen for long stretches, but it'll happen in periods where it'll just like descend on me. Yeah. You know, kind of like the fog rolls in when you're on the West Coast beach, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, fuck, it was sunny, but now it's foggy as shit. Yeah. You know, and sometimes it's a dark, heavy fog, and it's just weird how that happens. And sometimes I can ask the questions, and I can like actually start to allow the sunlight to actually pierce back through, just from an inquisition and an inquiry. That happened to me like maybe 10 days ago was my last episode like that. We're just having a great night. Things were, but this fog just rolled in deep, and I just stayed up in bed. And I was just talking it out, and I didn't know where I was going. I was like, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? I don't think it's this. It might be this. And like eventually at 2:00, I was like, oh, I think I got something, at least enough that I could actually wake up the next morning and not have it. Because if I don't, it'll go away on its own. You know, just like the weather patterns will change.
All emotions do.
Yeah. But there are some ways to like exacerbate, like to speed that up, I found. And sometimes I can get there, sometimes I can't. But if just patiently, with curiosity and no shame, an acknowledgement, a radical acknowledgement of what you're feeling, just start asking questions, and you might actually find some things that can help you. And maybe it just fucking is, you know, and you just got to leave it.
Yeah. One thing I wrote about a few years ago is anytime you judge an emotion, you make it worse. So if you're, and this goes for positive emotions too. So if you're happy and you decide you shouldn't be happy, you're a bad person for being happy. You just made your happiness awful. Yeah. If you're happy and you decide that you deserve to be happy because you're just like the fucking coolest dude on the planet, you just made your happiness worse. Like it's just, don't just let it be, you know? Any judgment of anything toxifies it.
It exacerbates it for sure.
Yeah.
I suppose on the positive side, like if you're at church or a wedding and something's really funny and you know you're judging yourself from it being, then you'll laugh harder.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it can be potentially used to your own hilarity advantage if the emotion primary is hilarity.
But yeah, I mean, it's I think the problem is when people take their emotions as an evidence of their character.
Yeah.
So if you take, you know, if you feel sad or angry and you take that as evidence of your character, that's going to turn into like self-loathing and hatred.
Yeah. Instead of just being depressed or bummed out, you are a depressed person.
Yes.
And you're a sad person.
And now you're prolonging it or extending it. And then similarly, if you are happy, or grateful, and you use that as a judgment of your own character, you decide like, yeah, I'm a badass because I'm like happy all the time. I'm a happy person. I'm happy all the time. Well, then you're gonna turn into kind of a narcissistic twat. But B, you're not gonna be resilient when the bad times come. Yeah, you know, because when that fog does roll in, you're going to be sitting there. You're like, well, I thought I was a happy dude. Like, what's wrong with me?
Self-questioning.
Why is this happening? You know, it's like, no, man. It's just, we all get happy. We all get sad. We all get angry. Like, whatever. Just let it happen. It's
I
doesn't
think
mean
that's,
anything.
and you talk about this a lot. And it's one of the things I love, and you touch on it at multiple points, but it's this kind of release of the expectations of identity.
Yeah.
It's something that I've really landed on as well. Like, we're all the things.
Yes.
Like, stop trying to define yourself
Yes.
as this thing. Oh, well, it's because I'm a Scorpio. That's why I like to fuck. Hey, everybody likes to fuck. Like, hello? It's not because you're a fucking Scorpio. It's just fucking everybody likes to fuck.
Yeah.
Like, but we have these things that we think about ourselves and try to like say, okay, this is me, but we're really all the things. Some things may have moved forward or
Sure.
moved backwards, but it's so fluid and it's
like
so universal.
You prefer chocolate, I prefer vanilla. Like it's the same shit. It's like you prefer making a fuckload of money, I prefer like sitting on a beach. You know, it's like
for now, and then like
it
that'll
doesn't-
switch, and then it'll
yeah.
like we fucking fluid. Everything's
Yeah.
fluid.
Yeah, it's all very arbitrary, and all of those yardsticks that we use to measure ourselves are completely arbitrary and self-selected. So yeah, that's layer 2.
Layer 2.
And we actually kind of got into layer 3, which is why are we feeling that
Yeah.
emotion, which is that comes into what are our values, which is how are we measuring ourselves? How are we measuring the world? What is our definition of success, a good person? And so things like, if my definition of being a good person is that I'm always happy and positive, then that means as soon as that negative emotion comes in, I'm going to be completely unable to handle it. If my definition of being a good person is making a shitload of money and, buying a bunch of Ferraris or something, that's going to set me up for, I'm going to be willing to sacrifice my relationships. I'm going to be willing to sacrifice my free time, my hobbies, like myself, my health, all of these things that are actually going to make me very miserable. So, and this is the meat of subtle art, which is basically ultimately the yardstick that we use to measure ourselves needs to be a good one. Because if we pick the wrong one, doesn't matter how hard we work, how motivated we are, how much we care, how much we study, we wake up early and fucking journal for 5 minutes. Like if you're pointed in the wrong direction, hard work is just going to get you there faster.
Yeah, I've really come to realize like that which you make special masters you to a certain degree.
Yes.
So like if your definition is money, that thing will master you. Like if that's special, if that's a special yardstick, it's almost like all yardsticks should be completely arrayed evenly. Like when you get one of those wall paint things and it has all the little colors, or like the Pantone thing if you're a designer, and you splay it all out, like everything should be about the same length, all splayed out evenly. But when you got that really long one, maybe it's sexual validation, the partners you're with, or maybe it's money, or maybe it's career, or maybe it's beauty, or maybe it's whatever. That thing will fucking master you, because ultimately all of these things are ephemeral and all of these things are shifting. And if it's disproportionate that you're measuring yourself on that one particularly special thing, then you're going to get fucked at some point, and that's just the nature of it.
There's a great quote that I love from David Foster Wallace. And he says there's no such thing as atheism, because ultimately we all have to worship something. So like the only way we can really derive meaning from our lives is to place something above ourselves. There needs to be something, like you said, the end of that yardstick, that our longest yardstick, whatever that is, it's the thing that we've chosen is the most meaningful thing we can do with our time on this planet. And because we place it up there above ourselves, we're willing to sacrifice ourselves to get it.
Yeah.
And you have to be really careful what you put up there. Sometimes it's referred to as like the God value. So it's basically like if your God value is sex, all right, you're going to have a great time, but you're going to make a lot of sacrifice.
Maybe, because if it's so high, you might be judging yourself the whole time you're having it and not really actually having it. It might just be like this rapid accumulation. Like I know people who have money as their thing. Yeah. They fucking get a new car. They're happy for like 5 seconds and then fucking sullen. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's a weird thing.
You have to be careful, because whatever it is, it's going, the way Wallace describes it, he says, whatever it is, it's going to eat you alive. So if your God value is like being smart, you're going to feel like an idiot and a fraud all the time. If your God value is being attractive, you're going to feel ugly and disgusting all the time. If your God value is being approved of, you're going to feel insecure and lonely all the time. So and ultimately what Wallace says is he says that this is actually the best argument for believing in a made up God, like whatever, whether it's Christianity or whatever. The best argument is that it's, as long if you can make something up that's completely unperceivable, then it can't hurt you.
The other way, which I think is actually accurate, in my own spiritual belief, it comes from one of my mentors, Paul Selig, who says, referring to God, all is of or nothing is. So God is everything.
Yes.
And then if you make God everything, well, then you're back in reality, square one again, where nothing has a God value. So you can create Zeus and just play with him, and at least it distracts you from these other things that are actually going to torture you. I get it, or just say like, oh no, God is everything. God is the person they don't like, the conservatives, the liberals, the people, the plants, the animals, the atmosphere. God is everything.
Yeah.
And then it kind of sorts everything out, and you don't have these things that will fucking eat you alive, like you said.
Yeah, I think ultimately the most successful God values. And by the way, we're getting way into my new book, so this is fun for me. Mm-hmm. I think the most successful God values that we create are principles. So things like honesty, compassion, because those are things that are both, like, you can't point to compassion. It's like, okay, find compassion, but it's something,
gratitude. It's
something that you can live.
Yeah.
So it's something that's very ephemeral and intangible. So it's not, you can't like constantly be measuring yourself by it. It's not like money where you're like, well, fuck, I could have like another 2 million. But it's at the same time, there are every single day there's applicability to living a better life. So the Greeks called these, they're virtues essentially, which is
what was the Greek word for that?
I think it was virtue.
Was it really? I think, arete was excellence, but I thought there was like another, I don't know.
Was it?
Yeah, I don't know. I studied fucking a lot of classical literature, civilization, and I don't remember.
I know, right?
I have some good stories about Alexander the Great. That's about it.
Yeah. I don't know if there's another word for it, but yeah, I think it's just the virtues, which is for the Greek philosophers, it was like bravery, honesty, humility, curiosity, things like that, that it was for them, that's what we should worship and always strive for, because they're abstract principles that, yes, you can never completely achieve them, but they make you a good person. They build good character.
They're like guide stars to kind of keep yourself aligned. I thought that piece you did that had Immanuel Kant's idea. Am I saying his first name correctly? Yes. Immanuel?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Emmanuel just didn't sound right. Maybe that's like the Spanish version.
He was German.
I don't know. He was German, so I that's why it didn't
probably
sound
like Emmanuel.
All right. Apologies to all German Emmanuels. I don't know how to fucking say that. But anyway, Kant had this idea, and you might actually know the exact language from Kant, but basically what he's expressing is the fundamental, and I'll let you say it, is the fundamental one rule kind of to live by. And I thought that was pretty fucking dope.
Yeah. Kant was a badass, and he gets kind of, I feel like he gets unfairly shat upon by a lot of people, I guess, undergrad philosophy students. But anyway, like,
but I didn't shit on him.
Yeah, never
shat on Kant.
But like Kant is like, he's one of those people that when you just kind of hear vague, like, I really wanted to write that piece because I had heard about his ideas just vaguely, like on podcasts and stuff. And usually when you hear about him, people like make fun of him. And then I actually went and read him, and it was life-changing. It blew my mind. It's actually, his book on morality was like way more nuanced and fascinating than anything than I expected. So anyway, what Kant said is, he said, look, like, if something is morally true, it needs to be true for everybody in all contexts. So it can't be okay for you to lie sometimes and not okay for me to lie sometimes. It can't be okay for us to lie today, but not like a week from that. He's like, there has to be, if something is going to be capital T true, it needs to always be true.
That which is true is always true. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he basically said like that immediately eliminates like almost everything, because there's clearly you can't say it's always wrong to, lie a little bit or cheat a little bit or kill.
Even kill, which is a fucking crazy one. Like, there's very few situations where I would kill.
Yes.
But like someone relentlessly breaking into my house with a gun, trying to kill me and my family. Like, I have my Sig Sauer 9mm. I'm pulling it, and one of us is gonna die. Like that's just the way that thing goes.
Yeah.
And so you can't say killing is universally always true to be bad if you're building this morality.
Yes.
So, and I think that's a really keen insight that he had.
And so Kant, and it's funny because he spent a lot of time like kind of twisting himself in a pretzel to try to find a way to like, argue that like you shouldn't kill and you shouldn't lie. But ultimately his theory kind of like arrived in a place where it's like, all right, there needs to be some higher kind of abstract principle here. And he threw out a few ideas. I think most of them kind of break if you look at them too hard. But the one that I really love and the one that really affected me on a personal level, because it really reflected a lot of the stuff that I found true from all my time kind of in the dating and relationship advice world, is he had this, he called it the formula of humanity, which is basically saying that the test for if something is immoral or not is to never treat another human being solely as a means, but always at least as an end. Now that sounds like super abstract and like, but it's actually incredibly elegant and beautiful when you think about it. So it's like, let's pretend you were like best friends with, I don't know, like Elon Musk or something. And let's pretend that I really didn't want to do this podcast, but I'm like, damn, Aubrey's boys with Elon Musk. So I'm going to do this podcast just to hopefully like get in with them.
Yeah.
I'm using you as a means to another end. I'm not using you, like you are not the end in of itself. You are not the sole reason why I'm here or whatever. Therefore, what I'm doing is unethical. Lying is a form of treating somebody as a means rather than an end.
And all forms of manipulation, though.
Yes.
Like every form of manipulation violates that moral policy. And manipulation could even be an act of kindness done specifically for the purpose of manipulation. And this was a teaching that I recently discovered. And I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like welcomed my whole life, like using emojis more than I should have. And
Yeah.
even me turning on my read receipts on my phone, I was like, oh, I'm pretending to these people that I didn't receive the message, but and I didn't read it and open it. Well, why not? Why am I doing that? Well, I don't want them to be offended that I'm, and it wasn't using them as an end purely. It was using them as a means. I wanted them to be in my favor in some way. So like really working on, okay, like honesty. Let's really treat everybody with that kind of respect and that truth.
Yeah.
Going all the way back to that first thing, like that is, I think, the fundamental piece of morality.
It's so fucking powerful. Like it, because not only does it capture like everything you and I intuitively like we feel icky when we do it, like you said, like the things on the phone and stuff like everything that makes you feel kind of bad. Like it explains that. It explains like lying, cheating, stealing, killing, all that stuff falls in line. Like if you steal from somebody, you're using them as a means to some other end. Right. Unethical. But like from that, like it's also very beautiful and elegant in that, so for Kant, his argument is he said that the most special thing in the universe is consciousness. He said that out of everything in the universe, it's very easy and imaginable for it to be replicated somewhere else, or in some way. except for consciousness. Human consciousness is the only, and back then they didn't think animals had consciousness. So just noting that. But like, he said that human consciousness, it's the only thing we know of that is truly unique, and you cannot find it anywhere else. He said it's also the only thing in existence that can create ex nihilo. It can create out of nothing something new. And so for him, he was like, that needs to be the fundamental unit of morality. Coming back to scarcity, like, you value what's scarce. For Kant, he's like, okay, well, the only thing in the universe that's really scarce is consciousness. Mm-hmm. So we need to base all of our behaviors around the protection and the promotion of consciousness. And from that, fundamentally what the formula of humanity is when you are treating somebody as a means, what you're doing is you are interfering with their consciousness ability to make decisions for itself.
Yeah, you're taking away some of their agency.
Yes.
Taking away some of their will.
Yes.
Because consciousness, has will.
Yeah.
And whatever, there's limitations on the freedom of that will. But in general, at least I'm a firm believer in this idea of free will, in this idea of choice, in this idea of agency. But when you shroud the facts, when you hide things, when you, shield things, show only your best sides, show all this, you're not giving that person full agency.
Yeah. You're limiting their consciousness.
You're giving them a perceptive bias.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to have one on their own anyways, But if you're intentionally doing it, it's sorcery.
Yeah.
It's a form of brujeria, a form of black magic.
Yeah.
No matter how you end up doing that, until and then how do you redeem that? Well, with truth.
Yeah.
You let them know, like, hey, I really fucking want you to like me. So you're going to be seeing like a lot of the best sides of me or whatever, and then, but I'm not always like this, and then you can like open it up and they can be like, oh yeah, that's cool. I want you to like me too. And I'm probably doing the same thing. You're like, okay, cool. Glad that we're here, and then you'll never escape it completely. But as soon as you like open up and communicate it, it kind of redeems it in a certain way and brings it way closer to that realm of agency.
Absolutely. It's so my little twist on the formula of humanity too is that it also applies to, coming back full circle to our initial conversation of our relationships with other people is reflected in the relationship with ourselves. The formula of humanity applies for ourselves as well. Sometimes we treat ourselves as means.
Oh no. Keep going. Keep going.
We treat ourselves as means to some other end.
God damn it.
And this is why having a God value of sex or money or fame or whatever is so destructive, because essentially when that becomes our God value, we are using ourselves as a mean to achieve money. We're using ourselves as a means to achieve fame. And that's inherently unethical.
That one fucking hit me, man. That one hit me because like
mic drop. I'm gonna go drop this.
Drop the whole because it's so fucking true. We use ourselves to a means to achieve these goals or achieve these ideas that our ego has, or achieve these, but we're not using ourselves as an end. Like, hey man, are you enjoying yourself?
Yeah.
Like, you want to breathe? Like, we have these almost like badge of honors for our suffering and our guilt and all of these fucking things that we're doing to ourselves, that it's just basically usury of the self.
Yeah.
And just recognizing and reflecting on how much of our lives are lived using ourselves as a means for something else rather than an end, and being like, hey man, like, how you doing, bud?
Yeah.
Like how's everything going? Like everything else is okay. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to, or you really should do that, man. It's good for you. Like, you got this, whatever the true thing of like really treating ourselves with that internal voice, not the fucking rampant self-critic and not the blind narcissistic egomaniac that's pumping ourselves up, but the truth, the tough love and the soft love and all the things. Like, that's a fucking really, really keen insight.
Yeah. Fucking Kant, man.
Fucking Kant.
There's a reason why he gets to just be referred to by his last name.
Yeah.
You got to earn that in history.
No doubt. Well, shit, man, you got a book coming out, so we're gonna do another podcast and go deeper into that book.
Fuck yeah. I mean, we did foreplay with it
right
there.
Good.
Yeah.
For people who didn't see his hand was shifting around, just touching lightly. So yeah, but we'll fucking dive in because I'll get a chance to read it. Hopefully, give me one of those advanced copies, and I'll dump in that shit
for sure. I'll send it to you.
And,
it's gonna be a mind fuck. It's really gonna.
That's the title of the book. It's going to be a mind fuck.
That'd be a great book title.
Actually, last time we did the podcast, we were having a walk and maybe getting coffee or something, and you were talking about the book title.
Yeah,
and I don't think I ever even fucking heard. If you released that yet? Is that no book title still secret?
I think it's still. Well, I've announced it to my readers. I mean, I could announce it here. Might as well start building the hype.
Yeah, why not? What's the book title?
So the book title is it's gonna be called "Everything Is Fucked." A book about hope.
Yes. And that was not the idea that you were kicking around on the sidewalk last time we had a podcast, but it's fucking perfect.
So look for that spring 2019, and I'll be back to promote it.
Yeah,
it'll be the final installment of the Mark Manson trilogy.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Thanks for coming by, brother. Great to see you, man.
Good to
and
see you.
Everybody else, check out his fucking blog, markmanson.net. Is that right?
Yep.
The posts are so good. Like, they're so good. You gotta read it.
Thanks, man.
Do that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.